Welcome back. It appears like self-proclaimed prophet Shepherd Bushiri and his wife Mary are getting support from traditional leaders in Malawi, if recent media reports are anything to go by. Malawi's Nyasa Times publication reports that two senior chiefs in that country have asked their government not to extradite the Bushiris to South Africa. Now, this development comes hot on the heels of South Africa sending a formal request to Malawian authorities seeking the extradition of Bushiri and his wife Mary. This after the couple skipped bail and fled the country last month. In an exclusive interview with the Nyasa Times, Paramount Chief Gyungu says that Malawi has an obligation to protect its citizens. Also, Senior Chief Kasugu weighed in, saying that their lives of the Bushiris may be in danger. Should the wishes of Pretoria be granted, the Bushiri couple will be extradited to face criminal charges in a trial that promises to be of interest to many of his church followers and other observers. But then, what does the extradition process entail? What does it mean? To find out more, we talked to Advocate Johan du Toit, who has been involved in seeing through many extraditions during his tenure at the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions at the NPA in Johannesburg office. Advocate du Toit, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Good morning, and to the viewers, thank you so much.
Look, South Africa and Malawi's common citizenship of the SADC community, the SADC protocol on extradition. I want to get a sense of how much of weight does that hold in terms of international and regional obligations?
Yes, I think it's a very important question. You know, South Africa has got the benefit that we don't only have a regional treaty as part of the SADC countries, but we also got a bilateral treaty between Malawi and South Africa. So our legal basis is based on two premises. The one is the bilateral treaty that we have with Malawi, and the other one is the regional treaty that we have as part of SADC countries. So our legal basis to request for extradition is very, very sound in law. And I, with due respect, I don't know how Malawi will get out of this. The legal basis is very solid.
An extradition request served from one country to another. Talk to us about that process in terms of who gets involved, who serves the request. Does a judicial authority rule on whether the person may be extradited? Talk to us about the checks and balances that are followed.
Yeah, thank you. You know, South Africa and Malawi, we both sort of common law countries. So the legal systems in both countries are basically more or less the same. It's just the actors that differ. So when you request, in our case, like we requested extradition, the full extradition application has now been sent to Malawi. Now, the first thing that Malawi will do, and we also in South Africa, if we just turn it around, is that application will be served on the central authority. That is the body within a country that's responsible for all incoming and outgoing requests for mutual legal assistance or extradition. Now, in that case, quite interesting, the legal authority or the central authority in Malawi is the Office of the Attorney General. Now, in our country, it's the Department of Justice. You know, in our country like Botswana, it's also the Attorney General. So the first point of entry is the Attorney General's office. Now, what normally happens is that the Attorney General, as the central authority, will examine the papers that's been forwarded to him. And he will then look at whether there is any legal problems in that application. And once that is done, he will then send that application free to the political person. And in Malawi, it appears to be the Minister I think they call it inline security.
Right.
In South Africa, it's the Minister of Justice. So the minister will then look at it from a political side. He will, for example, examine, do we have a treaty between South Africa and Malawi? Because he just wanted to make sure that the political blessing is given to that application. Now, because, as I explained in the beginning, we have bilateral and regional treaty, that issue will not cause a problem. It's just when you have, for example, no treaty, either bilateral or regional. For example, when I was MPO, we received one from Uganda. We don't have a treaty with Uganda. But then I have to wait for President Ramaphosa to give the green light so that we can proceed with that application.
Right.
But as I say, that is not the issue.
So the executive authority ultimately decides.
Yes. And then what will happen then, if they give the green light, the minister responsible for that, then it goes back to the Attorney General, and then the Attorney General will, in cooperation with the police, will then ask for a warrant to be issued. Because remember now, we live in South Africa. The crimes being committed in South Africa. It's not necessarily that the same crimes can be also committed in Malawi, because we got the principle, as they say, of double criminality. Now, what that means is that the crime in South Africa must also be a crime in Malawi. And no, murder is murder, fraud is fraud. That is not a problem, but it can become tricky. For example, we have in South Africa a very advanced Sexual Assault Act. The definition of rape, for example, is very, very expansive. We have sexual grooming, which is a unique part of our law, which is not necessarily a crime in Malawi. So what the Attorney General will do is he will examine the crimes that South Africa basically asks for.
Right.
He will make sure that there's an equivalent under Malawi law, and then it's very, very important. Then Malawi must issue a warrant under Malawi law, because otherwise, like what happened before, I don't know exactly what happened, but it appears to me that Malawi, when they asked for provisional arrest, didn't issue a warrant under Malawi law, and then under Malawi law, they must issue a warrant, and on that warrant, the Bashiris must appear before court. That is the procedure in a nutshell that must happen. But as I said, very, very important, you must issue a warrant under Malawi law. The same with South Africa. I cannot just act with a warrant from Malawi or from whatever country. I have to make sure there's a crime in my country. Right. And then secondly, that a warrant is issued under South African law, or in this case, Malawi law.
Right, it can get a bit complicated in one's mind, so I'm happy to give you the time to explain it and flesh it out. The decision to surrender the wanted person or persons, is it subject to multiple levels of appeal?
Yes, because remember now, the process starts with the issue of a warrant. Then the person must appear before a court in Malawi. Then normally the prosecution, with a person or a member of the Attorney General's office, will then introduce the documentation that he or she received from South Africa. Then his lawyer will attack it. And basically the role of the magistrate is normally to make sure, firstly, is it the right person in front of me? You will be surprised sometimes that there is a problem of identity. But in this case, I don't think there's any issue that this is a Bashiris. And then secondly, the issue is there sufficient evidence to link the suspects, in this case the Bashiris, with the crimes allegedly being committed in South Africa? That is normally what the magistrate do as a first step.
Right.
Then once a ruling is made, then, second steps come in that I can maybe explain later if you want to.
Right. So once a country has received an extradition request, does the clock start ticking? Are there any time frames? How long will it take to extradite a wanted person or persons?
It normally takes, quite a time, because as you rightly said in the beginning, there's always, like in any case, it's subject to review and appeal. So once that first step is taken, as to whether there's indeed a case, that's the first question to be asked. And that is normally done by the magistrate. Then once the magistrate rules, for example, that the person is extraditable, then the second phase kicks in. Then it's a general view by the minister responsible for that exercise. And then they look at broader issues like fair trial, other issues. Will he be protected in South Africa, which is a much broader question. And then, only then, a ruling is made by the minister responsible whether indeed the person will be extradited. So on the first phase, you can appeal that or you can review that, just a decision by the magistrate. And then once the final decision is made by the minister responsible, that that decision can also be taken on a review on that. So, it depends on the attitude of the Bashiris. If they're going to dispute this, it can be quite a lengthy period if they want also to take this matter on appeal or on a review.
So what are we talking about? Months? Years?
I think at least if it's in dispute, I think from my practical experience, it will at least take a year.
A year, that long.
For everything to be done.
So having said that, Advocate, and it's something that you touched on a little earlier, in order for an extradition to be successful and proceed smoothly, is it necessary for the country making the request to have a sound and healthy diplomatic, strategic, and as well as one would say political relationship with the other country? Does the extradition practice vary greatly depending on the country involved?
Yes, indeed. But as I said in the beginning, what is in our favor at the moment is that we have a bilateral and a regional treaty with Malawi. That is absolutely wonderful, because that is why the minister is now responsible for dealing with that. As I said in the beginning, if that is not the case, then the president must get involved to give the green light. And that can sometimes cause even more delay, because the relation between the two countries are maybe not so well. They don't have treaties. So that is why you have to go up to the level of the president to give the green light. But in this instance, when I was at the NPA, we've also asked for extradition, to Malawi. And, they've granted it to us. I think I'm not a politician, so I don't know what really happens between closed doors. But as you can see from the statement issued by our Minister of Justice, he said that he's very encouraged. There's a good cooperation between the two countries, and hopefully that will not cause a problem.
From your years of experience in dealing with similar cases, can you give us examples of any case that went horribly wrong and things just didn't work out quite the way it's supposed to?
I think sometimes I will add once a case where it deals with with the red notice that you probably also heard about. That countries sometimes, when they're looking for fugitives, they issue what they call a red notice through the Interpol channel. And then what has happened is that, remember, and the red notice is only a notice. It's just a notice that I'm looking for you, but it's not an arrest warrant. So when South Africa, like in the case with Malawi, when they receive that red notice from South Africa, all it says is that I'm looking for this person. Now, my attitude was at my office with the permission of also from my DPP, is that I will hold you just for 48 hours, like in any normal case. So I detain you for 48 hours, but then I want a provisional arrest application from the relevant country to say, this is the facts against you, and this is the warrant that is issued under that country's law, because I must now, from my side, I must now also get a South African warrant issued to make sure that the crimes that country wants us to extradite is also crimes in my country. And in this case, I will not name the country, but in this case, I didn't get that guarantee from that country within the 48 hours. So my decision, I wasn't very much liked for that, but my decision was, I'm releasing you, because I'm not sure that the crime that you've been accused of, there is sufficient evidence from your authority, whether it's Attorney General, Department of Justice, to warrant me in another country to issue a warrant and arrest you. And if I don't get that confirmation, then unfortunately, you also got the rights as a citizen, and it doesn't matter where you come from. And in that instance, we had another case, for example, just recently from Lesotho, where the magistrate ruled that the person will not get a fair trial in Lesotho. So we took him on appeal. We said, magistrate, it's not your duty to play Minister of Justice. Your duty is just to make sure there's sufficient evidence. Then the broader issue needs to be considered by the Minister of Justice.
Right.
And we took him an appeal. We won in Bloemfontein, and just only recently the Constitutional Court also agreed with that. So that is sometimes where magistrates try to play minister, and we said to them, no, stick to what you're supposed to do, because it can go very wrong. And that case took 2, 3, 4 years, and Lesotho, they want him, but unfortunately because of the wrong decision made by the magistrate, that delayed it even more.
Right. So interesting. I wish we had more time to talk about more examples, but we do appreciate the perspective. We do appreciate the context. It's been extremely instructive and useful. Thank you very much indeed, Advocate, for your time. Be well.
It was a pleasure, and take care.
All right, that was Advocate Jan du Toit, a retired Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions at the NPA's Johannesburg offices, giving us an insight in terms of the extradition process involved here. All right.